Wala nang patumpik-tumpik pa at diretsahan ng itinuro ni lead counsel ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa International Criminal Court kung sino ang nasa likod ng kanyang pagkakakulong. Sa panayam sa labas ng ICC Detention Facility sa The Hague, sinabi ni Atty. Nicholas Kaufman na si Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. mismo ang real prosecutor ng dating Pangulo.
I think that the real prosecutor in this case is actually in Manila, sitting in his palace. He's the person who threw President Duterte over here to The Hague.
Ayon kay Kaufman, ginamit lamang ang issue ng war on drugs bilang political weapon sa 2025 midterm elections. Bago pa man ang halalan, ay kinulong na anya ni Marcos Jr. si Duterte sa the Netherlands para gamitin ito sa kanyang kampanya.
He's the person who used the office of the prosecutor as a tool in his political campaign, and it won't work.
Dagdag pa ni Kaufman, batid ng kanyang kliyente kung sino ang totoong nasa likod ng kanyang pagkakakulong sa ICC. Git niya ang naging resulta ng halalan sa Davao City ay malinaw na protesta ng taong bayan sa nangyaring pagdakip sa dating lider. Batay sa opisyal ng resulta mula sa Davao City of canvassers, nakakuha si dating Pangulong Duterte ng mahigit 660,000 na boto, malayong-malayo sa 80,000 votes ng kalaban niyang si Carlo Nograles. Kung susumahin, mahigit kalahating milyong boto ang naging lamang ni Duterte kay Nograles.
The former president won a landslide victory.
Yes,
As far as I'm concerned, that's a finger in the eye to the people who threw him over here.
correct.
That's the real point of the elections. It was a protest vote.
Okay na?
Yeah.
Just not my paunch. Anyway, let's go.
Attorney,
Good morning, good morning. Yeah.
How's the...
Former President Duterte is in good spirits, as usual. He's always happy to see his defense team. And we're working on his case.
Thank you, sir, for that. So, Attorney Kaman, the ICC is in trouble after the U.S. placed sanction on Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan, who also faces a serious personal allegation. His email and bank account are reportedly blocked. So, our question is, number one, what happens now the case against former President Duterte? And number two, if the Chief Prosecutor can't do his job, who will handle the case? And number three, and how should the Philippine government deal with this, knowing the ICC is being questioned and the US is against it?
Well, let's start with the last question.
Yeah.
I think that the real prosecutor in this case is actually in Manila, sitting in his palace. He's the person who threw President Duterte over here to The Hague. He's the person who used the office of the prosecutor as a tool in his political campaign, and it won't work. Now, regarding the sanctions, the US sanctions, these were imposed. I don't think it has anything to do with the Philippines situation. As you may be aware, President Trump is pretty annoyed with the ICC because of the investigation into what so-called Palestine situation. And he has said, quite frankly, that anyone who targets the United States, who targets United States allies, and for all intents and purposes that is Israel, and Prime Minister Netanyahu, they will be subject to sanctions. Now, at the present moment in time, these sanctions are only affecting one person in particular. That's the Chief Prosecutor, Karim Khan, who has now suspended himself because of the allegations of sexual misconduct. I'm not going to go into those allegations. It's not my role to pass judgment. But he is being investigated by the United Nations, and the United Nations Office of Internal Oversight Services will come back with their decision on the matter in due course. And then whatever happens to Chief Prosecutor Khan will happen. But the person who is handling the case at the moment is the Deputy Prosecutor, that's Mame Niang. And he has overall control of the case, and he is the person who is now signing off on documents in President Duterte's case. However, on an operational basis and on a day-to-day basis, the person interacting with the defense is an experienced American prosecutor. I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a professional prosecutor. We just hope that the deputy prosecutor himself will take the time to learn the case and also interact with the defense, because just as I am accustomed to interacting with the former chief prosecutor, I expect that the deputy prosecutor who has now assumed that role will interact with me.
Attorney, with respect to the application or the motion that you filed pertaining to the disqualification of 2 of the 3 judges, we are awaiting the result of that. Do you have insights, or were there already information with respect to The result from the plenary session.
Let's get this straight. I'm defense counsel. I don't sit in chambers. I'm not a party or a fly on the wall in the discussions of the judges themselves. The judges, as you will be aware from the decision which was issued, have been required, I'm talking about the two judges who the defense requested to disqualify, have been required to make their observations by a certain date, and that was yesterday. They would have made their observations. I'm not sure whether those observations are disclosed to defense counsel at this moment in time. And they will be disclosed in due course once the plenary have sat and once the presidency renders its decision, and we will know what they decide. Let me make one thing clear. We invited the judges to disqualify themselves, or to excuse themselves, right, as a matter of courtesy and out of respect. They said that we shouldn't do that. Well, we shouldn't do that, but we acted out of politeness and courtesy. It's not our position to criticize judges. Judges are independent. They have a degree of integrity. That's presumed integrity, and we're the last people to question their integrity. However, this whole issue with respect to jurisdiction has already been litigated, and litigated extensively, and those two judges were party to that decision. That's what the request for disqualification is all about.
Attorney, it is also a known fact that the former president is now the mayor of the city of Davao. Are you already processing everything with respect to his oath-taking?
I'm not going to talk about oath-taking or anything. That's a legal question which is being handled by his Filipino lawyers.
Okay.
73 days.
Oh yeah, he's been there for 73 days already, held inside the ICC detention facility, attorney. Do you think that we're looking at years or hopefully the soonest possible time that he'll be released?
As far as I'm concerned, it's always the soonest possible. As I've told you many times before, there are certain preconditions which have to be met before an individual can be released at the ICC. It's not like one of your run-of-the-mill criminal cases where you can post bail and just get out and go home. No, in order for someone to be released here, there has to be a willing state party capable of receiving him onto its territory. And that's what we're looking at. It's a long process. It's something which requires a certain degree of diplomacy. And let me just come back once again to this whole issue of the elections. Okay, people miss the point. The former president won a landslide victory.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, that's a finger in the eye to the people who threw him over here.
Correct.
That's the real point of the elections. It was a protest vote.
Yes. Attorney, with respect to the prosecution's request or motions, twice they were granted that the presentation of witnesses will be extended. What is the implication of that with relation to the longevity of the trial in general?
Well, perhaps if we feel that we've been disclosed statements and witnesses' evidence at a late stage, then it could formulate a request on my part for the postponement of the confirmation hearing. But I'm not asking to postpone a confirmation hearing at the present moment in time at all. In fact, I'm quite happy for it to be brought forward, and I wish it would be.
Yeah. Because currently, attorney, there has been a report that one of the senator of the Philippines found out that there were ICC investigators already in the Philippines right now trying to ask retired policeman or policeman to sign a, what do you call that? An affidavit to strengthen their case here in the ICC. Is this also in line with the particular request that they have to delay the presentation of the witnesses?
I don't know what's going on in the office of the prosecutor. I've heard these allegations. I'm certainly not going to comment on the evidence in a media interview. I'm not allowed to do that, and I do not propose to do that. But I've certainly heard of these allegations, and they will be processed by the defense team and used in due course.
Should the government of the Philippines, the president himself, request for the ICC that our former president be brought back to the Philippines, can that be facilitated?
Yes.
Thank you. Attorney, is there something that you want to address the Filipino community all over the world with respect to what's happening, what we see as an illegal detention and a curtailment of his freedom as a Filipino citizen?
I want to tell the Filipino community around the world who support the president to keep your spirits up. to support him, but to support him lawfully
Yes.
and with all respect for due process, the judges and the victims, who I've said time and time again have an important role to play in this case,
Yes.
and they have a right to have their voices heard. So respect that. Has nothing to do with his innocence. We will fight for that, and we will hopefully bring him home soon. Thank you very much.
Attorney. Have a great day. God bless you, sir.